Hello, in this lecture we will continue on with Chapter 4. We are still working with Larry Landscaping, Garden, and Supply, which we will be working with for Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. Therefore, we can first open the file, which we have been working on since Chapter 1. You could do that any of two ways, or more than two ways. I will show you two ways. You can open the actual file. We could locate the file much the way we generally do with a Word or Excel document, which in this case is in the data files for me. There's the landscaping file. You can double click on that and open that, or you can also open the program like so and then locate the file from the program. Once the program is open, you'll generally come to this screen. You could click here to open the file or open it from the open or restore button. Again, because this screen doesn't show you exactly where the data path is, and because we will be using multiple different files later, I do suggest getting in the habit of going to the File tab and locating the file so that we make sure that we are opening the file that we are currently going to be working on. So I'm going to go ahead and open from the file. It says open, accompany, or restore. We had already restored it, therefore we only need to open it. I'm going to select next in order to do so. Then I'm going to locate where it is. I'm going to go to my desktop because that's where mine is at, and then I'm going to scroll down and look for the QuickBooks file, which is right there, looking for the data files and going into Larry Landscaping. Once this opens up, we will see that we are in Larry Landscaping by seeing that it is the sample file for Larry Landscaping up at the top. We're in 2014. Also have the open windows open over here on the left-hand side. These are from the prior problem, so you probably want to close these up. So that is what I will do now. We could do that all at one time by going to the Windows tab and then close all. So then we'll have this gray area in the back. If you want to have something in that gray area, such as the home page, you can go over to the home icon and click the home page, which will open the home page. If you do not have the open windows open over here, I do suggest using that, and that is located in the view tab and in the open windows section. Alright, so let's scroll down. This is a very short chapter, so this should be pretty quick here. We're going to scroll down. You can read the scenario. We're going to skip to the gray areas in this case, which has the objective of to create a statement of cash flows. So we are now moving on to the statement of cash flows, which we will create. So open Larry Landscaping. We have done step 1. Number 2, from the report center, click company financials and then double click the statement of cash flows. Remember, this is not clicking the reports menu item, it's clicking the company financials from the report center. Alright, so once again we're going to go to our trusty report center, which is located up here. So I'm going to go to report center. If it doesn't open full screen, we can make it full screen like so. It generally opens to the standard tab automatically, and we are currently in company financials. I am going to put it into list view so that we can see it in the list format, and we're going to have to scroll down a ways in order to find this, but right here we're in the profit and loss, similar to which is the income statement in essence. If we scroll down enough, we should find the balance sheet here, and then if we scroll down enough after that, we should find the cash flow statement, these being one of the main financial statements. And we're looking for the statement of cash flows, and I'm going to go ahead and run that report. And here we have the statement of cash flows with the operating and financing sections here and investing areas. So let us, actually there's no investing now, but we will make an adjustment that will add the an investing item. Okay, so we're going to create a statement of cash flows. We have done that. Okay, and then number 3, change the date from 9/1/14 to 11/30/14. So I'm going to hit tab 09/01/14 to 11/30/14, changing the dates, and there we have it. Now we see that we do have an investing activity item, which is the truck accumulated depreciation there, which probably shouldn't be there, so we might have to move that. And notice the statement of cash flows being that we're doing the indirect method here. We're starting at net income in the operating section. We are ending up at the net cash provided by operations. And then we have the cash from the investing activities, and then from the financing activities. The cash at the end of the period then should match what is on the balance sheet. If we wanted to check that as of November 30th, 2014, we could go to reports and we could go to financials and check the balance sheet. This is a quick way to go to the balance sheet other than going to the report centers. And as of 11/30/14, we see that in total cash, including the checking, the cash expenditures and savings, it's $119,092.59, which is slightly different. So let's take a look at what that difference is before we jump into this 119,092.59 minus. I'm going to go over here to the statement of cash flows, and we have the bottom line number that should tie out, which is 119,782.62. Now, we're off by $690. Now, QuickBooks should not be off because it's a database program and it forces us to be in balance. So we should be able to find that somewhere. So let's go back to the balance sheet. We're looking for that number, that 690.03. And if we scroll down here, we can see it right there. There's the 690.03. And notice, even though this undeposited funds isn't in the cash area, you would think it kind of would be. What is that undeposited funds? We haven't seen that in our theory classes. That means that we've received cash, but we haven't yet taken it to the bank. So the QuickBooks is going to distinguish between those two items, cash being in essence mainly the checking account. Undeposited funds could be funds that we are holding on to that haven't yet made it to the bank. If you work with a company that has a large amount in this amount, it could be a problem that needs to be adjusted, because that often happens. Alright, so we're going to go back over here, go back to the book and see what we have at this time. Moving down to page 64, number 4 says, select Customize Report and then select Header, Footer, Tab, and uncheck Date Prepared, Time Prepared. And notice where a cash flow statement does not have the basis of the accrual versus cash because it's a cash flow. So we're going to go to the Customize here. We're going to go to the Header and Footer, and we're going to remove the Date Prepared and Time Prepared. And there's the items that will be removed once we select OK. And it does tell us to select OK, so I'm going to select OK, and those will go away. So then we're going to go to number 5, says scroll down this report, and notice that 3 sections, operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. So those are the 3 sections of a statement of cash flow. Observe that the net cash increase from the period is reported at the bottom of the statement. It is then added to the cash at the beginning of the period to yield cash at the end of the period. So that's the format of a cash flow statement. So you can go through here and you can read through the item by pressing pause. We're going to skip to the next gray area where the activity will happen. And the next objective is to modify the layout of the statement of cash flows. Number 1, click the Classify Cash to open the Preferences window with Reports and Graphs icon selected and the Company Preferences tab selected as shown in Figure 4.2. So we're going to select the Classify Cash icon up here. We're in Reports and Graphs, which I believe is the correct area. We're going to go to Classify Cash once again right there. So we're going to select that. This shows us basically where the differences are popping up on the statement of cash flow between our 3 sections, being the operating, the investing, and the financing. So the difference in accounts receivable is an operating activity, mainly because the difference is related to sales. So prepaid insurance, operating, employee advance, operating. We got the investment asset is currently in the operating, the truck, because when we invest in a large fixed asset, that generally is an investing activity. The accumulated depreciation is in the investing activity. And that, I think, is what we are going to change, because the difference in accumulated depreciation is usually depreciation expense, which may need to go into the operating activities. So the credit cards in the operating, the oil operating, and these differences, and you go through here and check these off and look at where they're located at. So the equipment loan, of course, in the financing, the bank loan, and the equity in the financing activity. So let's go back here and see what we have next. Number 2 says, click Classify in the Preferences window to view a Classify Cash window. Number 3, click the operating column next to the truck accumulated depreciation to move the change in depreciation from the investment activity to an operating activity as shown in Figure 4.3. 4.3 is down here. So we are moving the investing activity and the accumulated depreciation to the from investing to operating. So we're looking for this accumulated depreciation. We have it in investing. We're going to move it to operating. The reason for that move is that the difference between the accumulated depreciation is usually depreciation expense, and it's not a cash activity. Therefore, it needs to be backed out of the operating section which relates to pretty much the income statement on a cash basis. So, and then we're going to select OK. Click OK to the preferences window, close it. Note how the report has been adjusted to reflect change in depreciation expense as adjustment to operating activities and not an investing activity. So let's do that and note that that happens. So we have removed it from the investing activity here. So here it is here. Truck accumulated depreciation is up in the net income in the operating activities. So it's being added back to net income because it was an expense in net income, reducing net income. And now, because it's not a cash-related item, on the cash basis statement, it needs to be added back to net income. All right, so we have noted that. We're going to scroll down here. You can pause and read through the non-gray area, and we're going to go skipping to the gray area, which has another objective of to use the quick zoom with the statement of cash flow. So we're going to double click on the 7,715.62 amount in figure 4.4 on the report reflecting changes in accounts payable, and then click OK. In the collapsing expanding transaction warning window, you have now opened a transaction detailed by account. So we're looking for that 7715. So we're looking for the 7715 in accounts payable. I'm going to double click on that, and it says to select OK here, so we're going to go OK. And we have now opened a transaction detail by account for the count of accounts payable in this case. What is this similar to when we think about our traditional financial accounting? It is similar to a general ledger for accounts payable, or a T account, meaning it is giving us the data for accounts payable by date. Now, we could see what's in accounts payable. What's going to always happen in accounts payable? We have a bill, and then we have a check, a check and a bill and a check, bill. Scroll down, and we're going to scroll down to number 2. It says double check Bayshore water bill, dated 9/4/14. So we're going to scroll down to Bayshore water bill, which is on 9/4. So there it is right there. We got the zoom feature anywhere on this row. We can then double click on it and go to the exact bill here. All right, close the bill. So before we close it, I'm going to go ahead and print that and save it in case we need it, and print these out as we go. Once again, there's no export to the Excel feature here, and if we select the File tab and we don't see the save as a PDF, therefore we would have to either print it or screenshot it. So I'm going to go ahead and do both. I'm going to print it as a PDF by selecting the print option here, and then I'm going to change the printer to my PDF printer, which it is as the default in this case. I'm going to say OK. It will then print as a PDF. If it doesn't show up, I'm going to try to minimize the screen. There it is. Now it's going to chapter 3, and I need to adjust that. So if I hit the drop down, and I could go all the way through, I go to my desktop, I'm going to scroll down to the QuickBooks account, and this time I need a week 2 because I am currently in week 2. So I'm going to go right click, new folder, call it week 2, click off of it first, and then I'm going to double click on it. And then I'm going to right click in here and name the chapter, which is chapter 4. I'm going to click off of it and then I'm going to go back on it. And then I'm going to call this bill for Bayshore water, something like that, and save it. And then once again, if you wanted to do it a different way as well, if you do not have that option, again, it's free download to get the QPDF for it. But if you don't have that, then we could also do the screen cut. So that's going to be, if you do it in Word, it's in the Insert tab, and here's the screenshot, and it's the screen clipping, I meant to say. And so you could do the whole screen. I like to do the clipping. If that was the last screen open and you select this, then it will pop to the screen automatically, and then we can then clip the screen, and that is an alternative way to do this. I'm going to save this as well, save as, go to my computer, browse it, and then locate the document that I am looking to save it to, or the folder in which I am looking to save the document to. In week 2, chapter 4, and I could call it docs, and we'll save it there. I'll leave it open in case we need to use it again. We can save it to the same area. Then I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to, as far as this is open, I'm going to save it. This I would rather save as an Excel document. So I'm going to go to Excel. I'm going to create a new worksheet, and then I'm also going to create a new workbook. So the default is correct in this case, and go ahead and export that. Should open Excel with a new tab with this form inside of it. All right, so there it is. I'm going to make this large. I'm going to go to the View tab, which is the page layout tab. I'm going to select OK. Did a funny thing with the split option. To get rid of that, I'm going to go to the View tab up here at the top. I'm going to go to the Windows, and I'm going to turn off the split option. Then I can go ahead and double click on this tab to rename it. I'm going to call it the Transaction Detail by Account for a P in this case. And then I'm going to go ahead and save that. We're going to say File, Save As, go to the computer and browse, and then we are on the desktop. I'm looking for my QuickBooks file once again, QuickBooks being here, week 2 this time, chapter 4, and this is going to be chapter 4 reports, something like that. We'll put all the reports on this document. Again, if there's some kind of problem with that being able to work, you could go to File, Save As. You can also print this option. So if we went to File, Save As, a PDF, for example, this would also work, although it's not the preferred option because the Excel document will save everything into one tab, which is a little bit easier to both upload and read. I'm going to go into chapter 4. I'm going to keep the extension. I'm going to not delete that because I don't want to change it from a PDF file. Transactions Detail by Account, and we could say 1114 and save that. Alright, and then it says to close both the bill and the transaction detail. So we can then close that, and we are back here. And then it says close do not close the revised statement of cash flows. So we will refrain from closing the statement of cash flows. Then you can then select pause and read through this. We're going to skip to the next gray area in here, which has an objective of to obtain and print the statement of cash flows. To modify and print. Click Customize Report on Report button bar, and then click the Fonts and Numbers tab. Click in the Without Sense checkbox, and then click OK to close, and then click Print Report button. Alright, so we're going to make this report have no sense once again. So we're going to go to the Customize tab up at the top. We're looking at the Fonts and Numbers group on the right. And we want this report to be without sense, although it does have sense, but it has no pennies now in the calculations. They have rounded that in, and we can now print that. We, of course, are going to save it. I prefer to save it in the form of an Excel sheet, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new worksheet. Once again, I'm going to put it in an existing workbook this time. It's going somewhere, but I don't think it's going to the right place. I'm going to go ahead and browse and double check on that. It's going to chapter 3 right now. We are currently on chapter 4. We're in week 2. So I'm going to go into the QuickBooks, going to go into week 2, go into chapter 4 and double click this Excel document. Export. It should open that document with a new tab with this report inserted on it. Alright, there we have it. So I'm going to go ahead and make this large. I'm going to see that's our sheet right there. I'm going to go to the page layout view, select OK, does the funny split, go to the View tab at the top in the Windows group. We're going to unsplit this, allowing us to double click on the tab, change the name to the statement, I'm going to abbreviate it, of cash flow. And that'll be good. I'm going to go back to the normal view. Going to put my cursor on this tab, drag it over to the right here, so it's kind of in order as to how we saved it. Then we could save it here. We don't have to go to Save As because it is already in the location in which we want it to be, and close that. Once again, if you don't have that option, you can print it to a cute PDF, or you can save it as a PDF, and it's going to the location that we want. Not going to delete the PDF file. Call it the statement of cash flows, and then we can save it in that way as well.